Hello everyone and welcome to my new talk about video. In this video I'm going to talk about Halo 3 and continue my series of coverage with regards to my feelings and thoughts with this series of games that I've already started with, obviously Halo 1 and 2. Now, Halo 3 was the first game in the main series to appear on the Xbox 360, and it was hugely anticipated. There was a big build up to the release of this. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that the hype for this game was amongst some of the largest amount and most intense amount of hype that I'd come across for any game at that time. And it really sparked, I think, in the last console generation, that massive overhype that you tend to get now with video games. We sort of take it for granted, but such was the anticipation for Halo 3 and its debut on the Xbox 360 that really the hype machine kind of went all out there. It was really, when you look back, kind of bizarre to see. What was also somewhat interesting at the time as well was how people responded when the game come out. Now, it had been in development for some time, and obviously because of the hype, expectation levels were through the ceiling. Now, it's kind of funny really, because when you think back, I mean, it's just a video game. It's not it's not designed to save people's lives. It's not designed to find the cure for any fatal illness. It is just a video game. And yet, the way that the hype for this thing had been built up, in fairness, not just by Microsoft, but by gamers as well, they were expecting it to be the second coming in terms of video games, which was preposterous. It was just going to be a sequel to a couple of games that were already excellent games. And this game for me was excellent in its own right. I was impressed by it, I enjoyed it. Did it visually impress me as much as Halo did when I first played that? Well, no, because by the time this came out on the Xbox 360, I'd already played other games that had visually impressed me. You have to remember that when I played the original Halo Combat Evolved on the original Xbox, that was the first game I played on that console. So by the time I'd got to play Halo 3, I'd already played games like Call of Duty 2. I'd already played the Ghost Recon, which was fantastic. I'd already experienced a lot of the new features and tricks and technology that the Xbox 360 had to offer. But that didn't mean to say that I wasn't impressed with the game visually at all. I still think to this day it's a very pretty game to look at. I think it's a fantastic design. I love the levels. I love the environments. I think they're great to look at. But it was ridiculous, I think, to try to expect a game to give you that same wow factor when it wasn't leading out the hardware straight out of the gate. If this had been a launch game, I think that people would have probably been massively excited about how it looked visually and so on and so forth. But because it came post-launch and after a number of games had already been released, it felt that people had a little bit of a tepid response to it, visually speaking. It also marked an age which I, in all honesty, utterly detest, and that's this age where people became obsessed about what the resolution was of the game. Now, high definition consoles at the time, everyone was measuring it. Oh, are these games 720p? Now, from what I remember, it's probably different on this version of the game because I'm playing it on the Xbox One, and I don't have any methods to measure what the resolution is, but apparently it was sub 720p. Now there may be people out there that say no, it isn't, and that's fine. I mean, I'm just going off what was being said at the time, and this seemed to be it was kind of the first game I remember where people were getting really bent out of shape over that. I mean, I looked at the game and thought it looks great. I don't care what some techie nerd has to say about it. I think it looks great, and I think it plays great, and I enjoy it. That's what I get the game for. But it was really the beginning of this obsession, and it seemed that unless games tick certain boxes, for example, it's got to be 720p, otherwise, it's garbage. This mentality has sort of evolved forward. I'm going to touch on that a little bit in this video now, because I do think it's important, even though it doesn't directly just relate to Halo. Halo 3 was the first time I encountered that kind of attitude, so I think there is some justification there in talking about the impact of that kind of thing, because he's part of, for me, it was part of Halo. It was just part of the mechanism that surrounded it. And this obsession, I mean, it's one thing, when you play a game, for example, and you want a 4K gaming experience on your 4K television, fair enough. Okay, I mean, I'm not saying that, but what I think is that when you use the excuse that perhaps a game doesn't achieve that level to bash that game, so say for example it doesn't meet 4K, it falls beneath that, then as long as the game still looks good and plays good, more importantly, then what's the problem? I think people get too hung up on details, and what becomes quite apparent to me as well, I don't know about anybody else, but what really becomes apparent to me is a lot of the people that mouth off about resolution and things like that, I see a lot of them, and I'm by no means an expert myself, but many of them don't appear to actually understand what they're talking about, because they're parroting what somebody else has said. And I saw a lot of that back then with this. You could see that people were just parroting what other people were saying, and when you parrot something, you're just repeating it. You don't have an understanding of where they're coming from with something, and so you automatically think it's a bad thing, and often that's not the case. Something that is just presented without context as a simple statistic doesn't necessarily equate to something being a bad game. Another example of a game that I remember that got kind of criticism for that type of thing was Quantum Break, because it was 720p, and people are like, why is it not 1080p? Well, did it really affect the game, your enjoyment of the game, your playing of the game? If it only came down to numbers, then why don't you play with an Excel spreadsheet instead of video games? I hate this idea that because a game doesn't meet certain technical criteria, it's sneered at and it's laughed at. Now, people didn't necessarily sneer and laugh at Halo 3, but it was criticised by some people, and sort of they had this dismissive nature about it. Now, Halo 3 went on to do exceptionally well, and obviously there was a sequel, Halo 4, which I'll be covering also on the Xbox 360. Again, that'll be part of the Master Chief Collection, but it also spawned a prequel, which was to be Bungie's swan song for the Halo series, called Halo Reach. Now, I won't be including Reach or ODST, which was a game that was... ODST was kind of a spin-off of Halo 3. I'm not covering those games because I just want to focus on the games that feature in the Master Chief Collection, because that's the core series of the game, and also Halo 5. Those are the core series of the games. Everything else is a spin-off, or a prequel in the case of Halo Reach. Halo Wars, again, I won't be covering them in this series of videos. I might get Halo Wars 2. I did have Halo Wars and I really enjoyed it, But those are things that I would cover in a separate series of videos. This what I want to talk about at the moment is just focus on the core series of Halo videos. I just wanted to put that out there because I know that people might ask, well, why are you not doing ODST? It's not because I don't like it. I had the game and I really enjoyed it, and you can actually download ODST as DLC for the Master Chief Collection on the Xbox One, but it's a spin-off. It's a sort of sideways sequel. It's not in the main overarching storyline of the Halo series, and that's what I want to focus on. So anyway, back to this. Yeah, I really loved what they did with this. I loved where they took the game. You know, you're back on Earth, you're moving around, you know, you go into different locations a lot more. There was more variety. They added in this ability for you to have they're not, I wouldn't describe them as special weapons, but almost these like special ability power-ups that you can pick up. So you can create a shield, like a bubble shield around yourself. You can, and they evolved that, by the way, in Halo 4, but I'll cover that when I get into Halo 4. So they were like power-ups you could pick up that you couldn't in the previous Halo games. That was a really nice feature, although I did find that when playing the game I didn't really tend to use them an awful lot because I kept forgetting I had them, to be honest. In the heat of battle, I usually was more concerned about doing things like that, which is throwing grenades, not trying to put shields up. But there are some times when your shield is being depleted right down and there's no immediate cover anywhere, and if you had the bubble shield power up, you could power it up and hide within it for a while. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really felt that they took the game where it needed to go after Halo 2. You know, it's always difficult to launch a sequel to a series on new hardware because there are going to be people that buy or would have bought the Xbox 360 and would never have owned an Xbox before. I mean, when you look at the sales of the 360, that was very much the case. There was a hell of a lot of people who'd never owned either a console before or an Xbox before that were new to the series, and this is your big flagship AAA game at the time. There's a lot of pressure to deliver something that plays well and is accessible to a whole new audience. This is something that Sony faced with the Uncharted collection. Now, at the time, Microsoft didn't re-release Halo 1 and 2. You could play them on the backward compatibility, but they weren't official Xbox 360 games. They only ever released the remaster, the Halo Anniversary Edition, which I covered before, on the 360. That was 343 Industries when they took over the Halo franchise from Bungie. That was what they released, but Halo 2 never got a remastered release on the 360. And so, like I've said in one of my previous videos, you have to work on the philosophy that comic books work on, is that every comic book is somebody's first comic book, and there was very much a sense of that here. Now, the storyline does follow straight on from Halo 2, and so it would be a little bit confusing perhaps for somebody who had never played Halo or Halo 2 to understand what's happening at the beginning. Why is the guy that you're playing falling out of the sky on fire and landing in a crater in the ground? And why does he keep seeing flashbacks of this blue holographic woman called Cortana? You know, you wouldn't understand those things, but I never really felt it was a significant obstacle. The game did sort of unravel the story as you went along, which I thought was a clever way of doing it. Rather than, you know, have like a cut scene or go to the expense of, some complex backstory plot device thing. No, it just puts you right in there, and it works. I really miss those days where you just started playing a game. It's again just talking about Doom 2016. Is you're in the game straight away. You're not sat there for 10 minutes while a cutscene plays out, and then you start playing the game for a minute, and then there's another cutscene because they're trying to cram in this story. Respect the gamer a little bit more. I mean, this is what they used to do. They respected the gamer's intellect in being able to pick up a story if they wanted to as the game went along, rather than having it being shoved down the throat right at the very beginning. And Halo 3 does that. The story unravels, and as you're going along, you start to pick up more things. Remember what I said, I actually hadn't finished Halo 2 by the time I started to play Halo 3. And so I wasn't aware of the events that had happened at the end of Halo 2. So even though I'd played the other two Halo games, because I hadn't finished Halo 2, I wasn't really sure what was going on. Why was the Master Chief falling from the sky? But at no point in playing this game did I ever feel that my enjoyment of the game I couldn't enjoy the game, rather, because I hadn't played Halo 2. Well, sorry, I hadn't finished Halo 2, I hadn't played it. And so I think that it was really testimony to the game design and the story designers behind the game, that they were able to craft something and create something that you both served both functions. It both served the fact that new people would be playing Halo 3 for the first time, and they did it in such a way that if that was the case, you were likely to want to go and get the other two Halo games to play them, because it hooked you into a story that you wanted to learn more about. You wanted to learn more about this universe, and that is what good game design and good story design does. By also keeping these things to a minimum as well, by keeping information and cutscenes and all of that to a minimum, you allow the game to breathe. And Halo 3 really does that very well, I think. It changed up with Halo 4, and I'll get to that when I cover Halo 4. But Halo 3 was supposedly the end of the initial trilogy, before Halo 4 sort of started to take you down a different path. And it feels like that when you play this. There's a lot of finality to certain things, but the scope and the scale of the game was brilliant. I mean, it was a fitting end to the initial trilogy before they kick-started the next phase of the Halo story. And I think Bungie deserve a hell of a lot of credit. This was actually a game that was very easy to screw up. The temptation when game developers start to do things on new hardware, there is a temptation to blindly focus on the graphics and make them a visual showcase, and that can often come at the expense of gameplay. You see that quite a lot. It was interesting that I played Forza 5, and compared to Forza 4, it felt like a cut down budget version. Sure, it looked pretty on the Xbox One, but in terms of content, it wasn't in the same league as Forza 4, which was the last Forza game that came out on the Xbox 360. And that was true of Gran Turismo as well. Gran Turismo, was it 4? I think it was 4. Was massive on the PlayStation 2, and on the PS3, Gran Turismo 5 certainly felt a lot more trimmed down in certain areas, and a lot of it is because the they have to get used to the new hardware. But also a lot of it is because they do allow themselves to become focused on this feeling that they have to meet certain visual criteria, and this dials back into what I was saying earlier about the obsessive nature that suddenly people have now about whether a game meets technical demands. It takes time, it costs more money. It's the difference between making, an average Hollywood action movie and a multi-million-dollar blockbuster, which is going to cost a humongous amount of money to do. Consequently, because you are focusing so many man hours on certain elements of it, it can often come at the expense of others. And so story and the overall quality of the film tends to suffer if you're not careful. The effects can take over the story rather than actually augment the story or assist the story in helping to tell the actual story to the audience. And I think that is something that a lot of video games, they fall into that trap too. They focus on too much on trying to be the best looking game out there, and not all the time. There's plenty of very good exceptions, but then there always are those ones that do fall into the category of all style and no substance. Halo 3, I think, avoided that. And again, people can disagree. I know there'll be people out there that weren't keen on Halo 3. These are just my own personal observations. That I felt this had a much grander scope, whereas I have to stop here. Who in the fuck is letting fireworks off? Like, it is not bonfire night. I live in a fucking shithole. I really do. It's just random shit like that. Right. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Yeah, I've lost my train of thought now, but yeah, the game to me felt epic and felt like a really suitable way to sign off the first stage, the first trilogy of the series before it went down a different path. And again, I think it was testament to Bungie again that they didn't allow themselves to be distracted. They created a game that had excellent visual quality, but they didn't allow that to get in the way and compromise what game that they wanted to create. That's kind of what I'm saying. So again, I'll go back. I mean, I pre-ordered the game. I went and picked it up. There was no undersized Master Chief this time. I think I probably wasn't the only one who'd observed that after the Halo 2 fiasco. And yeah, I was really excited to play it. I got back home with it. Back in the days when you didn't have to install games, you just put the disc in and off you went. And that was it. It was great. It was great fun to play. I had a blast with it. This was also the first Halo game that I played the multiplayer with, and I had quite a bit of fun with that. This was, to me, this was back when multiplayer you could still have a laugh with people. You know, I played online with a few people, a few friends, and I could have a laugh with them. You know, you'd very typical, just run around, shoot, and I absolutely loved it. You know, not so much the multiplayer. I enjoyed the multiplayer, but I loved Halo 3, and I did have some fun with the multiplayer. But again, I mean, it came out in an age where, like, one of the reasons I think that I played Call of Duty Online so much with my friends at the time was that there was really an absence of anything else you really felt you wanted to play online for a while. But when Halo 3 come out, there was already a number of games jostling for it. So beyond sort of the initial week of the sort of general inquisitiveness. Oh, wonder what this is going to be like. I never really went and carried on with it. I went back to playing through the single player campaign and taking that in, and that's been pretty much what's happened with the majority of Halo games. Like I say, I will occasionally just play one or two games online with the online element of a game, just to, sort of dip my toe in the water. But invariably, I don't bother. I just don't. I don't get on with the multiplayer elements at all. I have to say, and yeah, it was different. It was certainly a different crowd of people than what was playing Call of Duty 2, and yeah, I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't think at all about going through the efforts of actually playing it as religiously as what some other people tended to do. It's amazing just watching some of the playback of the footage I captured, how quickly it is you can forget certain things in a game, no matter how many times you play it, because you play a lot of games and you think to yourself, each game has its own sort of set of rules. Like there, when I came across the force field, there are some games you touch the force field, you die. Others you just can't get through, and others it only stops vehicles and you can walk through. And in that moment, I'm hesitating to think, now again, which one of these applies to Halo 3? Is it insta-death? Is it I can walk through but just not the vehicles? Or, it was one of those. It's like, shoot the thing? What do I do here? But yeah, a lot of fun playing this. And going back and playing it to capture the footage to do this video, I had a lot of fun as well. Going back and playing it again, even some 11 years. I think it was 2007 it come out. Was it that? 2006, 2007? Some 11, 12 years anyway after it come out. I still think it holds up. Even now, I think, they sharpened up some of the graphics for the Xbox One, but this isn't a remaster. This, there's not that much difference between this and the Xbox 360 version, and kind of makes a bit of a mockery to people who felt that because it wasn't quote unquote 720p or 1080p at the time, the game still to me looks fantastic. And I love it. I love playing it, and like the other Halo games, it's so easy to just pick up and play and get into. That was another thing that was really good with the Halo games that I don't think I've covered in previous videos, is just how easy they are to pick up and play. The mechanics of the game, you can have not played a Halo game for a while, and once you remember that what button throws the grenades and that not every weapon has an iron sight, it's just those really two things, but you quickly get back into it, and it plays so well, it plays so easily. I don't mean it's easy to complete. It can be very tough to complete certain parts of the game. Even on normal difficulty, there's a challenge. But it's easy to pick up and play. There used to be a game company back in the 80s, and I can't remember the name of the company, but their logo was easy to play, difficult to master. I wouldn't say it was difficult to master, but it's certainly Halo 3, like the previous two Halo games, is easy to play, and I think that's why, if I'm ever at a loose end, I'm not sure what game I want to play. I'm not sure, I'm thinking, I don't really know if I'm in the mood for this, I'm in the mood for that. I'm always in the mood to play Halo. I always have, the inclination within myself to pick up Halo 1, 2 or 3. Perhaps more so the first 3 games than the others, and again, I'll discuss some of the changes with the other games. By the way, I'm not saying that they're bad, they're not. In my view, they just feel different. But yeah, certainly I would highly recommend Halo 3 and the other two Halo games, as I already have mentioned, just simply because of that, simply because of the fact that if you want a really solid first-person shooter, I don't think you can go wrong. People will always find reasons to dislike something, but provided you've not got a massive anti-sci-fi, bone in your body, is in terms of being a first-person shooter, in terms of the action, you can't go wrong with it. They really do nail it. There's a reason they were so well received. It's because they're bloody good games, and I like them. That's all there is to it. I really enjoy playing them. I'd say I can pick up and play a Halo game, no matter what mood I'm in. I'll always find a positive experience to be had in playing these games. And I put that. The original Doom will always be the top of my list. There's not a game out that I have played more than the original Doom in its various guises that it's come out down the years. But if they ever came out with another Xbox console, if they came out with a 4K super duper massively fabulous version of the Halo series on the Xbox One X, I probably would look in ways with which I could raise money by selling probably my car, because I hate it, to get an Xbox One X just to play them again. I like the games that much. I always look for more up-to-date versions of Doom to play on new consoles. I never get tired of playing it, and I never get tired of playing these games, either the Halo series, just because I think that they were just so well made. They were so well made, they were fun to play. There's just a lot of fun to be had in playing them. What can I say, really? And yeah, I think we can get to the end of this soon, because I'm starting to lose the plot, if I haven't already, in what I'm saying. But certainly, if you have an Xbox 360, I'm certain you can find a copy of Halo 3 somewhere. It's well worth checking out. If you have for the Xbox One, get the Master Chief Collection, because that has the first 4 Halo games on there, and check them out for yourself. I love them, and you can probably pick up the Master Chief Collection Halo 3 now really cheap anyway. You can probably buy it and download it digitally on the 360, I would think, and I would imagine it's quite cheap to get now. And if you like first-person shooters and you like, decent action, good variety, big open environments and stuff like that to play in, I genuinely believe you can't go that far wrong. I love them. And yes, I think that will be it for my talk about Halo 3. So thanks everyone for watching. Apologies for my outburst with regards to the annoying fireworks that you may or may not have heard. They're just ridiculous people that live in this area that piss me off no end. They're just stupid, brain dead morons. But thanks for watching, and stay tuned for Halo 4 to come soon.